Pebbled leather, also referred to as pebble leather, is a term that refers to leather with a type of surface texture. The surface is usually pressed with a rounded, raised areas or little bumps. This gives it the look of tiny little pebbles grouped together. The texture can be very pleasant and is often made in softer leathers. And since it creates areas on the surface that are raised and a little bit, visually different, the leather is less prone to noticeable scratching and marks because it easily mixes in with the pebbling texture. And so typically any scratches or abrasions are less noticeable and it looks good longer during use. This pebbled surface can be found on both natural leathers as well as on faux, synthetic, and vegan leathers. On natural leathers, sometimes the hides have marks or flaws on the surface, and applying pebbling can make them suitable for use in finished goods because then that pebbling texture is more visible and those imperfections and abrasions are not. So this leather is so strong, but applying the pebbling can make it also usable. When considering natural hides, pretty much any level of quality, any level of cut can be used. So for example, we can be using full grain, which is the full thickness of the original hide, or we could also use a split leather. And that's where the leather is split from that surface layer and leaves you that and the internal layers as well, which are usually a little looser and less durable. However, since we're applying a pebbling texture to the top of that, it can make them usable, for clothing, accessories, and things like that, because instead of the exposed internal fibers, we now have that pebbling texture. And since it's just stamped into the surface, it's really easy to add this treatment to most any type of leather. We mentioned faux and synthetic leathers. It's simply pressing that pebbling texture right into that plastic or other material surface. So pebbling is really common. It's found in a lot of leather goods. Some popular ones include handbags, briefcases, travel bags, luggage, backpacks, boots, shoes, clothing, and upholstery. So pretty much anything that's out there can be made with pebbled leather. So let's take a closer look at this material itself. Looking at the top, we could see, even very up close, the different patterns of those grains in there, variations in the texture, some raised areas, some recessed areas, and you can see it pretty much creates almost a camouflage, if you will, for scratches and things like that. It also creates a tactile and very, feelable surface if you were to run your finger over it. Looking at the bottom, this is a natural pebbled leather, so we've got those exposed natural fibers on the bottom, and they are a little looser than what you'd find on the top. And so here we are. We've got those more open, loose fibers, and this is from the bottom of that leather. And looking at the section piece, this is always cool. We could see kind of the striations of those fibers within the inside of this leather. And we have looser ones towards the bottom, just like we had seen on that bottom section. They get a little denser towards the middle, and then the most dense towards the top, also, in this case, where that pebbling texture is pressed into. So the texture itself doesn't run too deep, but it is on that surface layer, which is a little of a tighter fiber pattern to begin with. The pebbling process typically happens as its own phase of a pressing phase. So once the leather is complete and we want to put in that surface texture, the material is then passed into a pattern. Usually it can be a plate or a roller or something with that pebbling etched into it in the reverse. And this is similar to how coins are made. They're essentially put into a die. And so this metal die is then either pressed or rolled into the leather surface, leaving behind it that pebbled textured pattern that we see. And in some cases, we have a finish applied. Now that we have that texture in place, we may also apply a protective coating. It could be for water resistance. It could be for a shiny or matte finish, or any kind of other protectant such as UV protectant and things like that. Scratch resistance, pretty much anything. And there's a variety of finishes that can be added. So once that's applied, then the leather is complete and ready for a project. When looking at cost, pebbled leather, is around $2 per square foot. It could be a little more, a little less, depending on the type of leather used to make it, as well as the finish and overall look and feel of it. But that's about the average for this leather. Pros include that it is a leather available in a huge variety of colors. You could find it in natural leather or synthetic leather. So you have a lot of options in terms of what you may choose for this, as well as how it may work for your project, depending on what type of leather you're looking for. In addition, there's a huge variety of pebbling patterns. So you can get larger grain pebbles, smaller grains, a lot of different options there as well. So depending on the scale of your project, you may want a different size. So that's available here too. And they also look unique. If you're looking for a type of leather that can wear well, not show too many scratches, and have a little bit of a kind of 3D texture to it, this can be a great option for that. In terms of cons, it won't patina like a typical vegetable tan leather, because in vegetable tan you have that smooth, consistent surface. So you start to see kind of those gradations of the patina forming. This will be a little different, in that it won't have that. And because there's a pebbled textured pattern on there, you really won't see the natural grain of a leather because that pebbling is covering it up. So where in the positive, that can make relatively, visually unusable leather usable, the con here is that it also would cover up and not show you that natural grain of a nice leather. When looking at good uses, there are a huge variety of uses, pretty much anything. Some examples that we could look at include purses. Pebbled leather works great for bags. It also works great for wallets and small leather cases. And the color variety that is available, pretty much makes it a feasible option for most any leather good and even clothing. So if you're looking for pebbled leather for a project, basically consider if you are looking for a synthetic leather with this kind of a texture printed on it, or a natural. They're going to be a little bit different in cost, likely the natural leather a little more expensive. It will give you a little bit better wear as well, and potentially look and feel. So consider which type you want to go with. Once you've decided that, you can look at overall pebble grain size and kind of the design and texture for it, and then essentially what you want to use it for, as that will help guide you in terms of scale of pebbling for your project. And there you have it. That is pebbled leather. It is widely used, widely known. It's a great option for a lot of different projects. So if you're looking for something that hides scratches well and looks unique and will make a nice finished product, then check out pebbled leather.